This week's parasha is Chayei Sarah. It happens to be one of the shortest Friday afternoons of the year, so this is going to be one of my most amateur videos yet. I'm just going to have to say the idea, reading it basically off the page, because that's all I have time for. This week's parasha, we hear the story about Eliezer. Abraham sends him to go and find a kala for Rivka, and Eliezer makes a test, and Rivka passes it. And the question that I have today is, why does the Torah devote so many words to this event? Not only does it say it in glorious detail, it repeats it when Eliezer tells the story again to Avram when he gets back. Real estate in the Torah is very low. Every letter counts. It has to be meticulously copied. So only so much could be put into the Torah. The rest is in the Torah Shebal Peh, the oral Torah. As we can see, the oral Torah is vastly, vastly greater than the Torah in terms of quantity. So obviously the real estate is of a premium. So we need to know, why did the Torah spend so much time on this story? Well, this story, all the stories in the Torah, all the events of the Avot are demonstrations of how the mitzvahs are to be performed. The real question is, why is there not more words put to the mitzvahs, which is what the Torah is ostensibly mostly about? It's there to teach us how to live our life on earth. Instead, the Torah devotes much more of its space to the stories of the Torah than to the mitzvot, which sometimes only take half a pasuk. So the answer to this that I've heard is that the Torah wants to emphasize that the ma'aser is the ikar. The action, the deed, is more important than the kavanah that goes into it. Now, that's not to say the kavanah is not important, but what must come first is the deed. I love my children, but my love is not going to get them through life. I have to express that love. I have to raise them. I have to provide for them. I have to teach them. I have to even cuddle them, to turn them into good people. So it's always the action that has to come first. We can always do the action before we can even feel it. So the action is the ikar. There is a mitzvah in Avot 117 that says it's not the drush, the learning, that is the ikar, it's the ma'aser. Rav Avad Yosef brings the Gemara that basically says that Rava says that he brings the first pasuk into Tehillim that says that a tree that bears fruit will not wilt. That's basically the Torah learning should bear fruit. The fruit is the deeds, and if the deeds are not there, then we compare to the wicked who get blown away by the wind, as one of the next pasukim says. And it's even more explicitly stated in Gemara Yishalmi that somebody who learns but does not do is better that he was not even born. Now, how can that be? How is it better that he was not even born? Well, think about this. One of the main reasons we come down to this world is to become more selfless beings. We're born self-centered, and our whole job is to overcome that and learn to think about others. When we're doing an action, we are genuinely getting out of ourselves and directing ourselves outwardly to others, and we have to consider their needs and do it their way and not our own way. Whereas our feelings are ours, they're internal, nobody can see them, nobody can touch them. The only way our feelings can be expressed is through action. So a story is given about a poor man comes begging to somebody's house, and the man opens the door and he says, "Please, I'm desperate for food. Do you have any money? Do you have anything you can give me?" And the man says, I'm sorry, but this is an opportunity to do the mitzvah of chesed, but I'm still working on my kavanah. I want to be doing chesed lishma, and right now I feel like I'll be doing it just for the reward. So can you please come back next year? I'll have a year to work on myself. It doesn't work like that. This poor man needs the food now. So give him the food, give him the money, work on your kavanah later. Also, as I said, it cultivates you being a person who thinks about others. A wife who asks her husband to bring her a rose. If the husband then brings a dozen roses, he runs the risk of making her feel ignored and making her feel like he's just doing something for his own glory. He wants to express his love. And one flower, not enough. A dozen, that's real. This wife is going to smack him. I don't want your 12 flowers. I want the one that I asked for, because that shows me that you're thinking about me and my needs. So the role of feelings is important, don't get me wrong. It's very important to put feeling into everything. A wife wants to know that he's bringing the flowers out of love and not just out of duty. But they can come later. They are best left until later, actually, because you can cultivate more mature, selfless feelings from the selfless actions, rather than just having your own instinctive reactionary feelings, which is not good. That's more like an animal. We're supposed to overcome that, like I said. So the story of the Torah of Eliezer is there to demonstrate how action is the main thing, because it's a story filled with actions. We see the actions of Eliezer. He puts his trust in Hashem. He makes a test. The test is to see what actions Rivka will do. And her actions are actions of kindness, of goodness. She goes beyond the letter of the law to even feed his camels. She demonstrates it with eagerness and goodness and wholesomeness. And that's how we knows that she will be a good wife for Yitzchak, because she is focused on the action. However, as I'm going to see in a minute, Yitzchak wanted to test that she was also good on the inside, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But before that, I also want to show that one of the actions they did was demonstrating real bitachon. Eliezer made a test and he put his trust in Hashem, and that's bitachon, trusting in Hashem. And Rivka also, when she was asked to marry Yitzchak, she left her whole life behind and went into the unknown, trusting in Hashem. And this is a very important point I just want to slip in there, that in Judaism we believe in soulmates. We believe that Hashem arranges all our shidduchim, all our matches, and everybody should know that they cannot marry anybody but their soulmate. So no marriage is ever a mistake, and nobody should ever think who's single that it's going to be impossible to find their shidduch, or like they should like worry about it too much, because Hashem promises, like in there's halachic implications, that we have to believe that Hashem matches us to our soulmate and nobody else. Nobody can steal our soulmate. We just would have much less of a shidduch crisis if people would emulate the actions of bitachon that was demonstrated by both Eliezer and Rivka. And Eliezer wasn't even Jewish, by the way. So now there's an interesting Rashi about what happened when Rivka got to Yaakov's tent. Sorry, to Abraham's tent, really, Sarah's tent. When she went in, we learn from Rashi, the three miracles that ceased when Sarah passed away resumed. The miracle of the clouds of glory that hovered above the tent, the mitzvah of the blessing of the challah, and the mitzvah of the candles being lit the whole week, not just Friday night and Shabbat, but they would continue until the next Friday. Rashi, as we know, commits himself to bringing the simple meaning, the pshat of the Torah. And for some reason, it seems like he's going beyond the pshat, because, for example, Yonatan ben Uziel mentions a miracle by the words that Rashi brings these miracles to. These words are, and he took her into the tent of his mother. He took her into the tent of Sarah, his mother. So those are the words, and Rashi brings three miracles, but Yonatan ben Uziel only brings one. So is Rashi bringing pshat or is he bringing drash? Normally, when he does bring drash, which does happen sometimes, he introduces it by saying Chazal darshans, Chazal made a drash. But this time he doesn't do that. He presents it just like it's some kind of a pshat. But then at the end, he quotes the Midrash Rabbah, which is not, as I say, his normal way of doing it. He normally does it at the beginning. Or he doesn't quote any sources because it's pshat. He never quotes a source, even if it's sourced in Chazal, because he's just assuming that is a pshat and it's not a chiddush of Chazal, so he doesn't need to quote them. So Rashi sees an extra word. The word is imo, his mother. Yitzchak took Rivka into the tent of his mother, but we already said Sarah, so why do we need to say his mother? So Rashi learned from this that he saw, not only was she good at action, because he'd heard the report from Eliezer, and then after that pasuk it says, and then he made her his wife. He's saying that when he saw that it was like her mother, his mother, then he realized that effectively she was good enough to marry. That's what made him realize that he wanted to marry her. And it's because the miracles demonstrated that she also had the inner qualities of Sarah, his mother, and that's what produced the miracles. Now Rashi explains where these miracles come from. And the first one comes from the tent. Why the tent? Well, the tent is referring to Sarah's tent, and Sarah's tent was known to be the tent because it had the clouds. What about Sarah? That's reference to Sarah as a person, and when we ever hear somebody's name, it's a reference to their mission. And we saw that Sarah's mission was the challah, because when Avram came to do the big mitzvah in last week's parasha, he told her to bake the cakes, and he did everything else. He didn't help with the cakes. It's totally her mission to bring the nourishment into the home, the challah. So the blessing of the challah came back with Rivka. And then finally, Imah, mother, that's a reference to the lighting of the candles. And Rashi couldn't find a pshat for that, so he had to then quote the Midrash just for that one piece. So there you go, that's the answer to that question. Now, the Lubavitch Rebbe says, actually you can see it in pshat, really, because everybody knows that it's their mother that lights the candles. And when they're growing up, they see their mother light it. So it is the woman's mitzvah. Okay? And now, the one thing I want to add to this, based on the Lubavitch Rebbe, is that the light that is brought into the home lasts the whole week. The mother, the woman, even young girls who are meant to light the candles, like Rivka did, they bring light into the home, and that is the nourishing light that gives the home its sense of homeliness. The man goes out, he conquers, he brings back the wheat. But it's just wheat. It's the woman who turns it into nourishment. She nurtures it. She nurtures everybody in the home. She takes the husband's raw materials and turns them into her home. And every single Jewish girl, every daughter of Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah is zocher to that miracle. We may not see it with our eyes, but when they light those candles, they are bringing light into the home. The beauty of the woman is on the inside, because the inside is the home, and she brings that beauty in. She brings it in first by emulating her mother and lighting the candles. Then as she grows up, she starts physically contributing with deed, with her hands, although she did use her hands to light the candles, which I'm going to say in a minute. That brings more of the nourishment into the home. And then finally, as she grows up, her purity is what makes the home have the Shekhinah, the presence of God, the clouds of glory. Every woman can do that. Every woman does do that. And how important is the woman? Well, and her candle lighting? Well, the Gemara says that the world is sustained by the Torah learning of children and the candle lighting of children. The Torah learning represents the inequalities like we were talking about before, and the reason why children do it best is because they do it with purity. They've never sinned, so their mouths speaking Torah are pure mouths. The children, girls who light the candles, their hands are pure because they've never sinned. So the lighting of the candles is the complement to the Torah learning, and both of those are needed to sustain the whole world. And the final is what the woman does. She seals the deal. So we have to basically emulate women. They are the ones that show us that it's the action that counts, but also the action is always is always preceded by an inner devotion, an inner quality that the woman brings into the world. They bring the inner quality through the action of the man, and through their own actions. So may we be more like women. We focus more on the action than on the feelings, and eventually the beautiful, holy feelings will come, and we'll add both kavanah and action into our service by being selfless, by focusing on others and not focusing on our own. Shabbat Shalom.